We're recording and live streaming now. You may begin.
Now I can go. All right, now we will call the meeting of the Board of Finance to order at 7:03 p.m. on Tuesday, March 16th, in the Police Department meeting room from the Board of Finance. It's myself, Tim O'Brien, and Glenn Frischman. Mike Feuerbach, are you on?
I'm here.
Lynn Young?
Here.
Deb Norman?
Here.
Bob Sajan?
Here.
Dave Motherway? Not present. Okay. Jim Sullivan, you're on, correct?
Correct.
And Jill Senior, we saw you on as well. All right. We have one of the most challenging, not in terms of necessarily fiscal issues, but in all the moving parts and revenues that we've got going on. So it is a very challenging budget cycle to try and get some certainties in. I think that tonight we'll do our best at this. I think what I'd like to start with is get a sense of the members of targets that we're looking at, and then we can work with Jim with some of the to make sure the numbers where we're at currently, and then we'll start going through the SIP items after that to take a look at all of the SIP entrances, and then we'll see where we're at, because we may need to postpone some of the discussion into Thursday until we get more information from Congressman Courtney's office about the funds coming in to the town and their potential usages. It is not entirely clear to everyone what the restrictions are, so we want to make sure we get that correct and don't commit to something that might be an issue. So given that, let's start with probably the feeling of, whoops.
Tim, this is Jim Sullivan. Can I interject something here?
Sure.
I would just like to, make sure we're all starting from the same point. We're looking at the same version of the budget. Initially, the budget, the hard copy you guys received, a month back or so, was version 7.1. And I sent to you, all the members, a revised version of version 8.0 on Sunday. The difference between that, as far as the first selectman's budget request goes, was the difference between the Board of Ed's initial request and the revised numbers they came in with. So right off the bat, there's from version 7.1 to version 8.0, there's a $2.4 million decrease. So I want to make sure everybody is starting with version 8.0, which under the first selectman's budget request is, the total request is $79,102,073. Do all the members have that budget in front of them? Is that what you're working from?
I have version 8, yes, Jim.
No, I've got version 7. So.
Jim, is it 8.0?
8.0.
And that the proposed expenditures I see on that is 78 million, 78.8 million.
Well, I'm talking about under the first selectman's request, 79,102,073. You're jumping ahead. We have between the issuance of these numbers, we have a $208,000 decrease, which were decreases that were made amongst discussions about department heads, which haven't been officially sanctioned by the Board of Finance yet. So I think to start tonight's conversation, we're starting from 79,102,073.
And where is that number in 8.0, in version 8.0?
It's in the column First Selectman's Budget Summary, which is on page, and forgive me, I'm working off an Excel and I got to go to the PDF copy to find the page. That's going to be page 7.
Okay.
Oh, and just to confuse matters a little more, the version 8.0 I sent out on Sunday, I forgot to put the numbers on it, so I resent it to again today with the numbers on it. So you have two copies of the same budget, one with the page numbers and one without.
Jim, can you have Jill run me a copy of that, and I'll pick it up tomorrow at Town Hall?
Will do.
And Jim, can you just review the summary then, so that we know what increase that is?
Okay, so starting on page, expenditure summary, starting on page 6 then, if you're looking on the first selectman's column, we'll see 1,068,206 for the first selectman's budget, 45,82,727 for the Department of Administrative Services. Department of Assessment is 362,354. Finance is 2,237,160. Debt service is $8,134,208. Department of Planning is $529,780. Public Works is $7,477,486. Department of Police Services is $6,599,726. And Human Services total is $1,734,864. Board of Education, the revised numbers, which were not in the original budget I sent you, is the $38,335,596. And then the capital improvements funding request is $8,036,968 for a grand total of $79,102,073. And then in the next column, you see Board of Finance amount increases, decreases. We already have $208,000 in decreases there. Those are mostly my decreases or adjustments, excuse me, since department heads have been refining their numbers. So these haven't been officially increased or decreased by the Board of Finance. These are just suggested adjustments to be. I think we should go over tonight as part of the budget review.
Yep.
Some of these, or if not all of them, have been discussed in prior meetings, but because those were during budget presentations, but they were not, because they weren't in deliberations. They're not actually official increases or decreases.
Yep.
So I'll leave it there, and if you want to take over from that point, Tim.
Sure. And I'm just going 1819. So this year was 71,348, 145.
79.
No. This fiscal that we're in now.
This projected actual.
Yes,
71,502, 169.
Hang on. What page are you on, Jim?
Page 7. Are you in revenues or expenditures?
No, now I got everything. Now I'm on the right page. I just want to make sure I get to the right page. Projected actual, 71,502, 169.
Correct.
Gotcha. I'm with you.
Is everybody there? Are we all on the same page?
Yes.
Members?
That's 10.27.
Correct.
Got it. Percent.
Well,
Okay.
that 10.27 is after the 208.
Is after the 208.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm with you. Yep.
Gotcha.
No, I just had to get my electronic copy in front of me because I didn't do the summary sheets. I did the rest where the changes were. So
Okay.
I've got it. Glenn, I can go over the numbers with you as we go through things if anything happens. Yeah. All right. So where we'd really like to start is kind of that's our starting point, I guess, is the 79,102,073, right?
Correct.
Jim?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
What would be the mill rate increase if no cuts were made, Jim?
The mill rate would be, oh, you know what? It would be about 26.0 or so.
And that represents an increase of what?
2 point, let me see.
23.36 right
Yeah, let's see.
2.7 mil,
2.7 mil plus,
roughly.
about 3 mils,
2.64.
2.64.
Yeah,
It's like more than 10%. So
yeah, it's about 10.9%.
All right. So obviously that would be a huge hit to the taxpayer and to the town. So we know where we're starting is not where we're going to end. I will open it up to members to express where you think you would like to try and end for the budget for the taxpayer. Glenn, do you want to?
I'd like to see us get down to a half a mil.
Half a mil increase.
Half a mil increase, which would be 26.8.
23.8.
23.8. I mean, I'd like to see zero, but I don't think that's realistic.
I don't think that's realistic either. Mike, do you have, Fauerbach, do you have a sense of where the target you'd like to get us to?
yeah, I was thinking of this more on a percentage basis, so to go back and convert it to a mill here. But I guess looking at it, certainly 10.9% increase in the mill rate does not work. So obviously we've got a bit of work to do. But I do think we've got a few things that we've got to consider here. The Board of Ed operating budget's in at 2.5% right now. If we accept that, that is the largest nut in the budget. So anything south of that, becomes challenging to manage. We do have most of the town staff at contractual increases, staffing increases, salary increases at 2.7%. And again, so you go below that, you're having to pull from somewhere else. Another upward pressure we've got here is we were really tight last year on capital. I mean, we were concerned about COVID, rightfully so, and so we really squeezed to the bone, and we really reduced capital, and I think we're seeing that come back this year with a tremendous increase in the capital requests. I think it was a couple 100 percentage points increase. So that's again obviously needs to be worked on. But I guess my point being, I'm not sure how realistic it is to go below a 2% increase. Again, we can do the math on the mill in a second, but I think after a 0% increase in the mill rate last year, something close to 2%, it feels a bit more realistic to me. And but as you said in the introductory, Tim, it's challenging this year because we do have some of these other funding sources that we want to take full advantage of. But exactly how we can use that money, which year, we know some of this, can potentially be spread over multiple years, and I'm referring specifically to some of the money coming in through the CARES Act. But yeah, I think we've got to come up with a strategy there. We know that we still have some funds left over that we set aside last year for the WPCA, but we ended up bonding there, so that's given us, that gives us maybe some degrees of freedom, some room to maneuver. We've in prior years looked at maybe taking a little bit out of undesignated fund balance. So that's another lever that we have available to us. And then the other thing I guess I would say is just off the top, I would advocate that we take out the $500,000 placeholder that we had last year in the Board of Finance budget for COVID exposure, I think we should just take that off the top to begin with, in terms of our discussions today. So anyway, those are my thoughts. But I think we're going to need to get creative, and we're going to need to make a lot of assumptions as we go through this cycle. But I do think that getting beneath 2% will be a challenge. So I'm in that somewhere around 2% range as a starting point.
Mr. Chairman, the value of the mill is about 2.8 million. Could you get that?
It's about 2.8 million. It's 2.827 million.
Okay, so 2% is about 1.4. So Michael and I are very close, half a mil.
Yeah, you're pretty close.
Great minds think alike.
Lynn Young, do you have a feeling for where you're thinking?
Yeah, I was just calculating out all those mill rates myself. Yeah, that puts us at like a $1.50 over where we are today. 1.45% in the grand list increase, right? When we're doing those mill rate calculations. Jim Sullivan?
Say that again.
Yes,
Lynn,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so when we're calculating the value of a mill, we're including the increase in the grand list of the 1.45%, right?
That's included.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say half a mil is probably a good target.
Deb? Thoughts?
It's hard to follow Mike. He said it beautifully, and Lynn as well. Yeah, there are so many moving pieces to this, and being a little bit of a newbie still to this, never gone through this. And the CARES Act those funds will be very, again, how we place those and where we place them. But I would be happy with 1 mil, obviously under, but that's where I am.
To get to a half mil increase year over year, I think you have to cut about $5,500,000 or so out of the current budget that's in front of you.
Bob Stachin, what do you?
Yeah, again, just following up after, I agree with the general tenor. I think certainly a 10+% increase is untenable. I somewhat of a broken record, but there's so many unknowns, whether it's the money left with the WPCA. We have the 500,000 that we set aside for this year. Removing the 500,000, as Mike said, I think is going to do a lot. But then the COVID money, as far as understanding, I think it's worth kind of talking about the timelines and when we think, that we'll get that information. Do we have any additional information? I know you talked about that. I guess we're going to talk more about that on Thursday, but I'm wondering, do you have any other information, at least from the last meeting, in regards to the use of those funds, or like what's the schedule as far as, do we anticipate speaking with Congressman Courtney tomorrow, or what's the?
Yeah, at this point, we don't have any new information that is able to help us with these deliberations. We have information pertaining to how the money cannot be spent, but we don't know if that's an exhaustive list or not yet. Congressman Courtney's office is supposed to get back to the town tomorrow morning latest, or tomorrow latest. So hopefully we'll know more then. It's an ongoing dialogue. So we're flying a little blind right now.
Right, and I'll just point out, probably the largest issues have to do with AC and the Board of Education's capital improvements, and so which could, does have a strong potential of being under the CIP. So even if we're not able to get complete answers, prioritizing that one area, I think would certainly go far to giving us something, giving us more direction as far as what we need to do. Because I agree that the 10% untenable, whether we get down to half a mil or a mil is going to be so much dependent on so many factors.
All right. Personally, my feeling is looking at contractual and looking at how we cut everything back pretty heavily coming into this year, into this fiscal. I think basically a 2.5% increase is probably about where I would be comfortable. So it's about just under 0.6 mil increase. So it's pretty close to where you guys are. Listen, I think that we got some challenges that we got to take on. But if we can get to a 0.5 mil, that'd be all better. But I think we're gonna, as Jim said, we're looking at over $5 million to cut to get down to there. So
You look at Schedule C.
we're gonna start right into schedules. I think what might make sense is the first thing, Jim Sullivan, I think I'd like to get a sense, would any member of the Board of Finance not be in favor of removing the $500,000 in COVID contingency that is in the Finance Department budget, operating budget for the coming fiscal? So hearing no one say they're not in favor, I think the first thing, Jim, I'd like to do is take that out of the Finance Department budget right now.
Okay. Excuse me. You're gonna have to bear with me. I'll be even slower tonight than I am usually, just because with the internet and the old laptop I'm working on here, the computer processing is very slow. Okay, I got that cut in.
Mr. Chairman, would it be inappropriate this time for calculation purposes to apply the 500,000 that we reserved last year as a revenue source for for next year's budget?
Not quite at this time, because we're going to need to get a lot more than 500,000 and more out. So
right, but I'm just wondering if it would be inappropriate this time for calculation purposes to identify that as a revenue source.
We can't identify it as a revenue source because it's really not a revenue source. It is a carryover from the current fiscal that we could move things against. We could do a line item transfer to expend it, but we can't, accounting-wise, show it as a revenue source.
Well,
Okay.
I think what he might be implying would be to use that $500,000 that we won't use this year, take it as which should then drop to fund balance, and use it as a use of fund balance, not a revenue, but as a other financing source.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'd rather put it into show it in fund balance, Jim. And when we ask you what's our fund balance above our 2-month operating, where is that? But I think there's still opportunities to use that funding in items that are that are now in the budget. So we might be able to strip 2 things out there as we go forward.
Understood. I was just trying to frame what I think Bob was trying to.
Yeah, no, I know
Okay.
exactly where he's going. I don't want to show it. Unless we show it as undesignated fund balance, I don't think it's not truly a revenue source. You know what I mean?
No, it's not. You're correct.
Tim, it's Mike, and just while we're on this theme of what might help build the undesignated fund balance in the current fiscal. Jim, can you just confirm that the WPCA funds remaining? Last time I wrote that down was $412K. Is that the correct number?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
From the 2021 SIP projects that we bonded for and we're not using for WPCA projects. That's correct.
Right. So that would drop the fund balance as well at the end of the fiscal if we didn't do it. If we didn't expend those monies this year, correct?
No, it would not, because those are actually in the SIP fund. We would actually have to make a manual transfer to move that money back into the general fund.
Okay, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
or make a manual transfer to fund things sooner, not later, and remove them from, if there's a line already in this current fiscal, we could reallocate them with a line transfer and then go from there, so use it, and then take it down in 2021.
Exactly. Yep.
Lot of moving parts. At this point, would members be okay with going to capital improvement line and going through that?
Yes, sir. I think that's a good place to start, as there are so many unknowns with COVID funds. At least this is more concrete.
Jim,
Lynn,
it's
Mike?
Lynn. Tim, it's Lynn. Is there any change from this version to the one we were working off of in the SIP? Jim?
In the SIP, well, yes, in the sense that, well, let me see. Yes, there's
Jim, I think
already, if you look in
Go ahead.
the, if you're looking on the summary page on line 63, you already see we've already made $254,000 in negative adjustments, decreases.
Okay,
So that wasn't in the version 7.1 that you had
okay,
last month, but it was in the version that went out Sunday.
okay.
I just want to get it in front of me here.
Tim, would it be useful at all, it's Deb, to keep like another line going in case we thought something was really a strong candidate for the CARES Act fund? Or is that just going to make everything more confusing?
Right now, it's going to make everything more confusing.
Okay.
We ought to just
Got
the
it.
CARES fund knowledge in our back pocket.
Got it.
It is proving a lot more challenging to understand the restrictions on that money than anyone would have suspicioned.
Thanks. Okay.
All right. General operations, do folks want to go line by line through SIP?
Yeah, let's go line by line through SIP and see what we can come up with.
Okay. First line is townwide computer technology upgrade, 65,000.
Did we make that 50?
We did.
We did.
Is that going to severely hamper us, or are we going to be okay?
We'll be okay.
Okay.
So pardon me,
Right.
was that, this is Jim, was that just reduced by $15,000?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. That's $1. Next is line 3, the video security system. Town hall at 19.5.
Why don't we take 10,000? We won't buy quite as many cameras.
It's Mike. The only question I have there is if we kind of cut that in half and turn it into 2 projects, does that result, in a more costly overall initiative, or is this something that we can scale and do half now and do half later and still end up at the same total?
Mike, this is Roger. What we would do is we'd look at the project itself. The core of the project would be, first and foremost, a new network video recorder, and then we'd look at replacing just the existing cameras. The infrastructure is already built, the network switches are already in place, so adding cameras at a later date we can do. It's just a matter of running the cabling and then the cameras themselves and the labor to do that. That's the bigger part. So we can revisit the project and do what we can do. I
guess then the question, Roger, is can you get something done that's practical for 10,000, or is there a bare minimum to really make this a worthwhile effort?
Again, I have to double check the spec. I don't have it in front of me. But I think we can probably do at least that, yes. Do the bare minimum to get the project move forward for next year.
Okay, thank you.
So were we knocking off 10 or knocking off 9,500, Tim?
That's the question in front of us right now. Glenn had suggested taking 10 off, so leaving 9,500 in. I want to get the rest of the board members' opinion.
That's what we did on Sunday.
That's,
You all good with that?
yep.
Okay. Well, Jim will take 10,000 out of that line.
Done.
Okay. Next, we're down to ADA accessibility, town facilities, line 6. I got Patty here in the room with us. Can we take 5,000 out of that?
Yes, you can take 5,000. We'll have to prioritize what the improvements are at that time.
I take 10. It's a B priority.
So I have suggested 5,000 out. Glenn is suggesting 10,000 out. What's the feeling of the board?
I'm sorry, Tim, we couldn't hear Patty.
Yeah,
She said that they'll just have to prioritize, but taking 5 out is fine. Is 10, if 10 comes out, is that
I'm afraid. I mean, we haven't done detailed assessments, like in town hall, we have a fair amount of things that I think need to get improved.
This is a B because we haven't addressed it and it's
Kim,
so long
guys.
that, I mean, other towns are facing lawsuits. I don't think this is something we want to, I think 25 was pretty low for what we were originally looking at.
Lynn, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I can't hear them when they're talking. I heard Danielle that last time. So we're building a fund here. That's what we're doing. Towards what end? Like, do we have some sense of what it's going to cost?
Lynn, we're going to actively take on projects because we heard the Board of Finance last year when we first said we do a plan. And now that we have Patty on board, she has graciously taken this onto her workload to write the plan, to do it. But based on a very initial assessment of public works, we came up with the 25,000 that actively address projects at town hall and human services, ranging from hitting a button to open a door that doesn't work at human services so people can come in wheelchairs to we've already changed out some doorknobs, but more things like that. Just these are just some basic things that we can do with this money for this year, and then next year we come back with more of a list once Patty has time to fully flush the plan.
Got it.
And for those that couldn't hear, Patty said that to cut 10 out would be hard. So 7.5 would be the max. But as much as we can leave in, she would like to keep. So
It's Mike. I think if Patty's on it, she's willing to do it, and we need to get it done. We've deferred, I think, some of this in prior years. I prefer to hold the 20.
I agree.
okay. Jim will take 5,000 out of that line, please.
All set.
Okay. Now moving down into the police. Okay, let's start with the body cruiser cameras right away. So that 500 I was able to get from Lieutenant Schneider, the current numbers that will qualify. So that 500 becomes, hopefully my math adding is good on the fly here, 136, 226.40.
Can we just leave it at round numbers and I'll take 365,000 out of that?
So, sure.
So that leaves 135,000 even in that line item. We'll find the other $300 somewhere else.
Tim, it's Mike. Can you just clarify? So that is that what they believe is the amount we should put in year one to maximize our reimbursement? Is that how they landed at that number?
Yeah, correct. So he worked pretty extensively with Axon Enterprise, who is working with other municipalities in the state of Connecticut, and they're working with OMB to make sure what can and can't be qualified for the reimbursement. A lot of the ongoing costs are subscription fees and licensing fees. So those aren't eligible. That's why the overall total number is 464,187, of which we've front loaded as much as we can for the 30% reimbursement.
Like, great.
Ongoing, it'll be $82,240.35 in out years.
Sounds like a good plan.
All right, so that changes. And Penstein, did you get a number for the MDTs?
Yeah, that should go up to 50, but adding 31,000 would bring it to the total number that we needed to purchase everything that they have.
Okay, so if board members remember, on line 12 is the MDT replacement, and those are not an operating system that the body cameras and dash cams support. So to upgrade those, Lieutenant Schneider's saying change that 19,000 up to 50,000.
50?
50. How many units does that represent?
They're going to purchase one now with demo unit.
But that's eight more. So that represents the 8 MDTs. They're getting one now out of current year funding to try and make sure it all works well, but that would be the remaining 8 that they need to upgrade.
Do we have the option of staggering that, or is that really got to, that's the price if we do it all in one shot?
All in one shot.
That's the all-in-one shot, and what Lieutenant Schneider told me the other day was if you have the MDT in the car and you got the body camera, they don't talk to each other because of incompatibilities, you got issues.
All right. So he's saying we should able to split that over 2 years.
That's cool. They all have to be able to work in unison.
All right. Members have, I'll open it up to members at this point. Yeah, I think the 135 is what we got to do there.
So, Tim, I got a question. The 135 front loaded gets us all of the body cams and car cams or whatever they're called, right? So we need all the MDTs because we're going to have all the cameras. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. And all the cameras were coming in because those are all qualified for that 30%.
Right.
All right, if Mike, if we do that, can I assume we can reduce then row 10 or line 10, the technology upgrades, down to 0, given that they already have 42,000 in that account?
It'll be 35,000 because we're taking 6 out of it for the computer.
You guys are in that room. We can't hear you, or I can't hear you when you're talking if you're not at that mic. So
we can take it down to $1, but they'll be left with only 36, not the 42, because they're taking 6 out to buy a MDT now out of that.
All right, I still propose we move that to $1 then.
Great.
I'll concur.
So Axon doesn't. There's no way to fold the MDT replacements into Axon, right? That's not what they do.
No. Yeah, totally distinct and different technologies and companies. Okay. Is anything else at this point in services?
Well, Tim, can I get some clarification on that? So technology,
Sure.
we move that down to $1, is that correct?
Correct. Line 10, we brought down to $1.
Gotcha. Okay.
And you got line 12 to 50,000?
I did. Yep.
Okay. And you got the body cams? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. The assessors town revaluation, I don't think anyone wants to move that, so we'll stay at the 70. Public works, drainage improvements, looking at drainage improvements town-wide, that's in at 50 to start with.
Yeah.
You're dialed in. I can see the computer, maybe what's going on.
They were calling you from the highway.
Barbara or Tom, are you on?
Barbara, Tom, if you're on, press *3 on your phone so I know it's you.
There you go.
Okay, what?
Okay. Hang on, we see who you are. Give us a moment.
Now press *6.
Yes, we're here.
There we go. Okay. I did not know how to do that in one of my meetings. All right, let's start going down on the list. First one, drain improvement town-wide, in for 50 now.
Can we reduce that by?
Barbara, can we bring that down to 25,000?
You mean whatever we asked, what we thought was needed. If we need to cut it down to 25, then we'll make do with 25.
Okay. Are members in favor of cutting that down to 25?
Yes.
Yes.
If I might
Yes.
interject, I just want to be sure that if we do cut this down to 25, I think it was maybe Lynn brought this up at the last meeting. If we have a larger project that comes, because the smaller project will eat away this right off the bat. If we have a larger project that comes, which we already know we do have one, that the board knows will come to be asking for an additional appropriation.
Yep.
What's the larger project?
What we talked about last time off of Williams and Allen Street is likely probably around 5,000 all in. So we'll be coming back for a conversation on that.
You say Williams, what?
Allen, across the market.
He's got you from the meeting.
Where the new construction is.
Every year, every other year, there will be a larger drainage project that will inevitably come up. So again, we want to keep the SIP at the 25. That's why I just want to be sure we're being fully transparent.
Jim, can you change line 23 to 25,000?
Done.
Okay. Highway equipment purchase.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to support the payload. I think the payload is more than 30,000. Support 7.
Glenn is suggesting getting the payloader for 230,000 in this line. What do members feel?
I'll raise my hand.
You Barbara, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you.
Okay. I have updated a spreadsheet for the equipment, and I'll have it to you tomorrow. But I just want to clarify to everybody, we have $4.5 million of existing equipment, and we own one sweeper. Towns around us, Groton, Westerly, they own 2. So we don't have an abundance of extra equipment. We're requesting a replacement value of about 9% of our total equipment with what we've listed right now. When you look at the spreadsheet that I'll provide you, we actually have $1.67 million of equipment that is past its useful life. And so that's basically 37% of our fleet. our equipment for parks and recreation and for highway and for facilities are past their useful life, past the recommended life of that piece of equipment. So I'll provide this to you tomorrow, or actually, yeah, you'll have it tomorrow, so you'll have it for Thursday's meeting to look at in advance. But we've gone for several years now without replacing large trucks. The cost of the trucks have increased, and right now we actually have 3 trucks that are recommended for replacement based upon their age. And that, that's what I just wanted to share, those facts about what's going on with the equipment. So we're stable now, but we're going to get to a point in a couple of years where you're going to end up with millions of dollars of equipment that's failed.
Thanks, Barb. All right, for right now, I think that the recommendation from Glenn that I want to make sure I get from the board members was to take that line to what did I just lose it? 230,000.
Jim, it's Mike. Can I just confirm with Barbara that, in fact, it is the loader that is the priority, correct? I mean, of all the pieces of equipment, the one that Glenn's suggesting we fund is the top piece?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. All right, thanks. So I would support Glenn's recommendation.
Okay, Jim, can you change line 24 down to 230,000?
Done.
Okay. Then roadway safety. Or 25,000.
Tim, I'd like to take it out, put $1 in there.
Take it down to $1, Lynn?
This is the guardrail replacement, for code compliance. Yeah. We have a lot of money we got to find here.
Yep. Other members?
I concur.
Concur? All right. Jim, can you change line 27 to $1, please?
Done.
Thank you. Paving. Do we want to look at paving now or keep going through and leave it where it is and then we'll...
I would leave it where it is and come back.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, it's Mike here. Yeah. I mean, we took this down last year, so we'll probably have a little bit of a hole we gotta dig ourselves out of, and yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined to hold it steady at the moment. So, I mean, maybe it's one we potentially come back to, but I'd prefer to leave it as it is.
We'll skip those 2 lines for now and we'll keep it in our back pocket. Then we come down to DPW radio replacement.
Wait, Tim, back up for a second. It's Lynn, I got a question. Is there any state funding that comes in for this?
Yes, we get about $300,000 in town aid road funding. And so what I've asked for is 900. That would combine to give me 1.2, which is what's recommended to maintain our current road rating.
Right. So where is that, Jim? Where's that credit, that 300,000 in funding that we would get?
You don't see it in the budget. It's in a special revenue fund. That's not part of the budget process.
Okay.
What's our cumulative balance in low SIP? Do we have anything from prior years?
No, we do not.
Okay.
And we're not looking for any LoSiP for this year?
We are. I added $109,000, but so that money's being
So that's a change. Okay.
used year to year. We're not accumulating anything in there. So no.
All right. Sorry, Tim.
Sorry, Mike, just one follow-up question for Barbara. If we're able to maintain this at 900K from the town and 300 low SIP, so the 1.2 million, what does that mean from a workload perspective for the highway department? I mean, is that manageable? Is that doable in one fiscal year, or is that you're going to really scramble to be able to do that?
We would absolutely be able to do that work. So
Okay.
highway does a lot of the prep. We do the drainage work, and and then we've been doing all of the traffic control. So we don't have a paving box, and so we do not do any in-house paving.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, if everyone's ready, we'll move on to DPW radio replacement. Okay. Then for 41,000,
So,
Barbara, can we phase this?
We didn't get that. Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Can we do this in phased increments where we don't do everything at once?
Tom?
I think it would be all or nothing in this case. So if it's something that you would want to defer, I would say defer it. I did some research into the portables, and I don't think we'd be making enough of an advanced leap there without having the mobile units in the trucks. So I would say to defer it and push it out rather than try to do it in pieces.
And we were actually, we were trying to put money away this year to do the purchase next year. So we were already trying to spread it out.
Okay, then I would recommend we take it down to $1 and push it out. Any other members feel?
Fine with me. You're gonna use portables, right?
He was saying, Tom was saying that they don't think the portables do enough improvement. Okay, Jim, can you take line 30 down to $1, please?
Done.
All right, right away, 88, compliance and ramps. This is, Patty, this is what you broke out for the ramps and that?
No, this is one that, when they have.
Oh, that's right, okay.
And so I could give you a little bit more data on this. In 2019, we inventoried the ramps. We have 464 ramps. 87 of those are compliant. And so 377 don't meet ADA compliant standards. Base ramps replacement are about $4,500. So we have a backlog of $1.69 million of accessible ramp work. And they also went and they looked at sidewalks at the same time. We have 33.9 miles of sidewalk. And Stonington has an overall backlog of $4.3 million of cost to repair every sidewalk throughout the town, section of sidewalk throughout the town.
Well, you can't do all that at once.
No, we cannot. So,
If, looking at your paving list, let's just assume things are, is your paving number include the ramp, or is that in this line for doing the ramps? You're upgrading the paving on the road if you're doing a full replacement?
my paving list only includes cost to do paving and drainage. It does not include the ramps.
Okay, given what you're looking at, if we don't change the paving number, could you do it with the ramps for 50,000 in this line?
I've went out and surveyed the ramp. Honestly, I don't think 100,000 is going to cover all of the ramps that need to be done for the next year's, for the paving that's coming up. What I ended up doing is I take the money out of the paving budget to address the ramps.
What do members think?
I take it down to 50.
I'm sorry, we can hear Glenn.
What Barbara said, I mean, just to be clear, if you do cut it down to 50, you're basically taking 50 out of paving, because we do have to do them. So, to be sure you're seeing them as connected as they are.
Glenn recommended taking it down to 50,000. Mike and Danielle was saying that if you take the 50 out, with the paving they're doing, it's really taking 50 out of the paving line, because they gotta do the ramps no matter what.
Understood. But yeah, I do think it's challenging. It's but we probably do need to keep chipping away here. Otherwise, yeah, again, we started at 10.9% on the mill rate increase. So, I would support taking 50 out, and that means rebalancing 50 out of paving. So be it.
Mr. Chairman, I've got the list from Director McCrell. There are 10 streets that if you add up her estimate, it comes to about $1,500,000. They go from Aliceport, Lima Road, Tipping Rock, Bigelow, Cleveland Lane, Backacres Way, Anguilla Brook, Toglonk Road, Spur Road, and Millennium Terrace. You concur, Director McCrell? That's about $1,059,000. I'm basing it on the sheet you gave me. Those were the worst 10.
Well, so the sheet that I gave you was just the first page of this year's paving plan.
The worst 10.
Yeah. But this year's paving plan is actually goes to page 3. I thought I had sent Jim a copy. I thought he had sent everybody a copy of the document.
I'm asking, this is the worst 10 that I just read to you. I know there's more pages, but
Aliceport, Backacres Way, Fraser Street, Knight Street, Lincoln Avenue, Summit Street, Washington Street. They are all the roads on my list that are planned for reclamation, which is a full replacement.
yeah, I can see that. But the top 10 on your list are the ones I just read you. So we can expect that those streets would be done.
Actually, Glenn, may I interject here, just to clarify something? Glenn, what you have in front of you is the top 10 worst roads, but those aren't necessarily in this next year's paving plan, because the paving plan tries to group roads together by location to maintain efficiencies. So just because something's in the top 10 doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get paved. It might be the top 3 and the 7th and the 8th, and then maybe the 15th. So you're talking apples and oranges there. Does that make sense?
Now it does.
All right. Jim, you got line 31 to 50, right?
Nope. I will now. Okay. Minus 50. Done.
Okay. Then line 32, the bridge replacement, per Chris, he said, right, he said to bring it down to 29, right?
He did. He's on. He's confirmed. He's very honest.
So Jim, for line 32, can you bring it down to 29,000, please?
Yes, taking 71,000 out of that.
Yep.
Okay, done.
Okay, on page 94, lines 34 to 44 are just $1, so we're not going to do anything there. Line 45 is Washington Street drainage improvements. That's the end of that one. I suggest we leave that alone. Okay. Then we get down to line 50, the Willow Street drainage. And that, we think we'll leave that one alone too.
I would.
Okay.
It all splits.
Yeah. Then we get down to the facilities management. The HVAC improvement, I don't want to do anything to that right now until we know what the COVID money we can do is, because that, whether we can or can't get air handling. Same with the human services. We're gonna, is everyone okay if we leave that in for now, but put a kind of an asterisk next to it?
Sure.
Okay, then we get to the Pawcatuck Pump House Fire Suppression Abandonment. I would be in favor of bringing that to $1. Okay, Jim, line 57, can you bring it to $1, please?
Will do.
Line 58 is the West Broad Street school repairs. That is contractually at 50,000. I don't think we could change that.
We can bring it down. Barbara can talk about that. We can bring it down a little bit, we think.
Barbara, can you talk about, or Tom, the West Broad Street school repair line? We have it in at 50.
Yes, actually, I put a memo together and sent it over to you today. And in our current CIP for the West Broad Street School, we currently have an available budget of $19,843. And so what I would actually recommend is that we only put, we put 50,000 minus that amount. So somewhere around $30,000 into that budget. And then that'll start us off with the new fiscal year at $50,000.
Okay.
Is that
So
clear?
Jim, can you change line 58 to 30,000?
Will do.
It would be, well, it would be 30,200.
We'll just keep them in
We'll
round
do
numbers.
30,000.
Let's just keep it round numbers.
Yep.
Can we get some detail on what we're spending money on for this? I know we're contractually obligated.
Yeah,
Just to know what we're doing there. Can't hear you, Danielle.
She won't be able to
Sorry.
hear it.
Barbara sent over a good memo breakdown today, and we could definitely dedicate a future Board of Finance meeting to it because it does warrant a deeper discussion, but she did just send something over today.
No, actually, there was no breakdown of the coming budget. It was, she did a breakdown of the current budget.
Right. Well,
Well, we can.
okay, so we're just contractually obligated for a blank check for 50 grand. Okay.
No, we're contractual to.
What happens, Danielle? What happens? Danielle, what happens if we disagree with something that somebody else wants repaired?
We could go into more detail, but essentially the lease outlines pretty specifically, and it's up to 50,000. And again, we've been working really close with Father Perkins. They're a great tenant. They don't expect anything out of the ordinary. But we should dedicate a future meeting to further discussion on the future of that.
Let you know what we've done and what we need to do.
Yeah.
Let's put a placeholder in that for a future Board of Finance meeting, and let's
Take it down.
keep going on we're taking it down to 30.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, line 59, Donahue Park security lighting. I'd recommend taking that down to $1.
Agreed.
Out of, is that good by everybody?
Agreed.
Think silence is acceptance. Jim, can you take line 59 down to $1?
Done.
Then we're down, WPCA has nothing, solid waste has the one front wheel loader, that will leave, 5,000. Then let's get to next page, which is human services. First item there for human services is a 441 for the tennis court rebuild for where we're going. Leanne, are you online?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. This is where I would like to see, okay, here's a suggestion that Danielle had that I liked and I think is good. When we talk about that 500,000, we put aside, and that was based on education, potential needs, and needs of the students in the schooling. I think this is a perfect one to take $440,000 out of that 500 line and apply it against this tennis court. I don't know how members feel about that.
I think it makes sense. It benefits the whole citizenry as well as the school children. I just redirect the funds. It's in Schedule C.
It's already in there. How do other members feel?
I concur. That sounds appropriate and answers the question I had at the beginning regarding those funds. I think it's a very effective way to sort of deal with both those issues.
Yep, no, I would agree, but does that still leave us with another 59,000 remaining? Was that 440? Okay.
Liam might want to come in on this, but we might find out by Thursday that this is going to cost more than we thought, around that amount. So it might actually be a perfect line item.
Leanne, do you think you could, if something changes between now and Thursday with that 441 number, could you get that fed back to us, please?
Absolutely. We have a meeting with the design group tomorrow to start finalizing our conversations. We were hoping to have something more formal in place for you this evening, but after tomorrow and speaking with the design group that we've contracted with, we hope to have something more solid to look at and also break it down very specifically by the actual layout of the courts versus the lighting versus the fencing, so we can make some difficult decisions if we have to at that time. And look forward to doing that this week.
Okay, perfect.
Tim, it's Mike. Can Jim just comment on logistically, how does that work in terms of the accounting here?
Well, that 441 that's in the budget now for 2022, that 441 would go to zero. And there's $500,000 in the Board of Finance budget for 2021. We could transfer that out to SIP in the current fiscal year and use the money and create that same line item in the current year in SIP.
Yep. All right, got it. Thank you.
Jim, does that include replacing the lights, or at least making sure we have lights on the court?
I don't know what that includes, Glenn. I'm not part of I wasn't involved in the project planning.
How about Leanne? Can you answer that question?
Sure. So at this time, we are going to be getting more information on that tomorrow, as I said, and getting an actual breakdown. We were looking at estimates 3 years ago from other courts regionally that were being installed and talking with different design groups at that time. As of right now, what we are baseline looking to do is put the post-tension concrete rebar down to replace the asphalt surface so we don't have that cracking that we're having to spend tens of thousands of dollars to repair each year. We're also looking to have windscreens built into the fencing, as well as the lighting. There is lighting in place at the tennis courts at this time. Unfortunately, it will not be able to be salvaged as we move this project forward. It's degraded too far.
Okay, but do you think you might have better numbers for Thursday?
I'm going to push for better numbers to at least give some type of baseline that we can work with, and we'll stress the urgency of this as well.
Okay.
Leanne, are these going to be hard-through courts?
I'm sorry, what was that, Lynn?
Are these going to be hard-through courts, or what are they?
I apologize. I can get that information to you as well. I'll email you a detail. We actually, tomorrow, we're going to be looking at a couple of different proposals and having a team meeting to go over it with the design group, and we'll come up with a couple of different options and pricing options so we can make some decisions.
Okay. How many courts total are there?
6. Initially, we were also asking for some estimates as far as putting pickleball courts in too, because that's been quite popular, but again, that would be an add-on. What we're looking to do, and we made clear to the design group before we signed on board with them, we really have a tight budget that we're keeping with here and with what our plans are. So I'll get that information to you. If we get anything back tomorrow, I'll forward it on as soon as I receive it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, planning department. We are.
Excuse me, Tim, this is Jim. May I ask a question? So we're leaving the 441 in there for now until Thursday?
Jim, I would take I think we got a sense of the board right now that we would take the 441 out and we would move the SIP from this year.
Okay, very good.
Or the finance money from this year. And we'll get a final number, whether that's 441 or 451 or 460, whatever, hopefully we'll get a better number, but knowing that it's also, we're accelerating it for the design group. So we'll do the best we can at budgeting that in the next 2 days.
Very good.
So you can take the 441 down to 0.
Okay, done.
Jim, are you taking that to zero? We probably ought to leave $1 in there.
Oh, all right.
Just in case something happens, because we don't have a final design that they're sure of yet.
Okay.
So just to leave flexibility, let's leave $1 in there, please.
Very good.
Okay, engineering and construction of the new sidewalks. Jim, version 8 has that at 822, is that correct?
Yes, after discussing that, after that last meeting, that was a discussion point. I sat with Sue Cullen, the Director of Economic Development, who's managing that project, and we were able to bring that down to $121,500.
Okay, so the current number is 822 for everybody.
Correct.
All right. We have $1 for the bicycles. Plan of conservation and development.
Wait, Tim, I'm sorry. Tim, it's Mike. Just back on the sidewalk. Is the offset or the grant money still the same as 600,000?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Plan of conservation and development at 5,000. I think the sense is to leave that for now.
I would leave it for now.
Okay, comprehensive plan update, zoning regulations, plan is to leave that alone for now.
Fully concur.
Permit tracking for the 15K, also leave that alone for now. Climate change adaptation and mitigation program.
I drop it back down to its previous level.
Agreed.
So Glenn has said he'd like to drop it down to 10K.
10K.
Agreed.
Go ahead, whoever's. Who's talking? Lynn, was that you?
Oh, yeah, sorry, that was me.
What did you say? I couldn't hear.
Oh, I said, no, I agree with knocking it down.
Okay. Jim, can you change line 89 to 10,000?
Done.
Okay. Line 95, the inspection vehicle. I don't even know this one if I take to $1 or to 0, because this is, I'd rather just have them come when they need to.
You don't want us to put, so it's not a big purchase? Okay.
No, I'd rather just get it.
Get a used
You
truck.
just pay for it if we need it.
Yeah, we'll just pay for it if we need it. If there's an issue. Do members want to take it to $1 or to 0?
Well, if we take it to it, it will stay in there if we take it to $1.
Right. Yeah, because in case something happens this year to it, at least if it's $1.
Okay. Well, Jim, can you take line 95 to $1, please?
Done.
Okay. Okay. File retention for 75,000.
Now, is this the digital process for our records?
This is the process we should have done 10 years ago.
We need to do. I don't spend money.
I'm sort of curious,
Is
though,
this-
why is this? Oh, sorry, Glenn. There's a weird
No,
line.
go ahead. Go ahead, Len. There's the delay here that we're still trying to balance out, so go
Okay.
ahead.
So we go from a priority from the department of an E to the SIP committee of a C to the board of selectmen of a B. Can somebody explain that journey?
Lynn, I can bring it up a little bit and then Patty, but essentially, also now that we have Patty as the Director of Administrative Services, she's been able to work some wonders internally and also through, my own conversations with staff now being there a year, we've come to realize that this is a top priority. I don't think, people were quite vocal as they should have been, again, out of due respect and deference to the Board of Finance. They don't often advocate for themselves. They just kind of put their head down and do their work. But I mean, this has come up from multiple departments, from clerical staff, all of you, to department heads, everybody thinks this is really needed. So really, it was just, I think, getting to know the staff better from both Patty and myself that we came to realize this is a top pressing concern. And as you guys know, the space concerns at Town Hall, and a lot of it is paper. So it will free up physical space in the office for people to space out. So obviously COVID brought space needs more to our attention. Patty, do you want to?
Yeah, what I would add, this is not only automating, this is starting with just one department. This is going to be a multi-year project to automate a lot of what we have and a lot of paper in Town Hall. It's not just going to be 1 year. It's not only to automate, get rid of the paper, it will help residents. They'll have much easier access to information online. They'll be able to go online and access information that would normally take a long time to find. It's also security and safety. If something should happen in Town Hall, all those records are gone. We will have all this automated. Now, again, it's a multi-year project. We're working with a company that's on the Connecticut approved vendor list. We're getting estimates, detailed estimates from them shortly. They're giving us very good price points. They're an approved vendor, and they're giving us volume discounts, even though we're likely not going to have the volume to get that this year. So they're coming in on Thursday to do a complete assessment of 2 departments to determine the total number of pieces of paper by size, and then we'll get a very detailed proposal from there. But again, towns that have done this have taken many years to get this done. So this is really just going to be the first year of kind of going through a couple of departments to get everything automated.
So once we digitalize it, can we ditch the paper, or we got to then store that someplace?
You likely still have to store it off-site storage. Most people are not comfortable completely ditching some of these files, so I think it would likely put it off-site somewhere. We have some, I think, pods off-site on our facilities already, I think they're called, and we would probably put some of it there, but we would look at that. I don't think we would ever entirely eliminate it, and we would put it somewhere off-site, very inexpensive.
So are we going to start backwards with the, the first in stuff or the last? How are we going to do this? Going to be the new stuff?
We're going to go by department. So ideally, we're starting with planning, and then everybody's lining up to be next, but possibly then the tax assessor, and then going, kind of at department by department.
Now, will we ship these records out, or will someone come in and sit there and scan them?
We will ship them out. The company that we're looking at is in Rhode Island, close by. They'll come pick it all up. They take it to their facility, industrial, they scan it, they bring it back. They will work with Roger to make sure everything's scanned and indexed into our online documents. And yes, so the other thing, Lynn, as you mentioned, the planning department, Keith and Gail have been kind of people pushing for this, so they're the first department to go. They've been very anxious, ready, your files with Keith, and so they have been the people that have really been pushing for it and are ready to go.
I've been in there, I know why.
And we think the 75's the right number?
I think that's a good number at this point. I will have a more detailed estimate when they come in and evaluate everything, but based on what other towns have done and information I've received, I think that's a good number to get us started.
What's the feeling of members?
This is a critical project. I hate to say it. I'm saying.
Okay, Glenn's recommending to leave it at the 75. Is anyone contrary to that? No, all right.
It's a little hard without knowing what the estimate's going to be. I mean, yeah, I agree. It sounds like we have to move on this. Could we get away with something, 60, 50? Who knows? It sounds like we need that estimate for the first year, but they make a compelling case.
The more you give up front, the more we can get done. Like Patty mentioned, a lot of departments are ready to say with bated breath. So this will be a multi-year process, but the more we have, the more we can do in 1 year.
Once we have a final estimate, we can adjust.
Yeah, we can then extrapolate to the other departments.
Yeah. Okay. We'll leave that for now.
Yeah, Patty, can you just give us can you give us a clue about what other towns have said to you for their costs?
It's identified projects. I know Westerly has done this over multiple years, and some departments are 25 to 30,000, depending on how many records they have. So Westerly's done it over a few years with different departments, and I think one department probably, 30,000, but it really depends on how much history and how much records they have. So I've worked with a couple of other towns to understand what they spent on it. That's where I'm trying to ballpark estimate. We'll have a much more detailed estimate after the vendor comes in Thursday morning, goes through all of our projects.
All right.
All right, next on the list is circus lot acquisition and master plan for 10,000.
I want to knock that down, Tim, to whatever, call it $1.
How do members feel putting that as $1?
I concur.
Can I jump in and just let you know where we actually are with that? Because there's a lot more to it than just the circus lot itself. I mean, if we can regain that wellhead from West Water even over time, which we have that first reverter clause, but also just to even make a small investment with a group of students, with a concept plan. When we did the concept plan for the Campbell Grain facility, it cost about $6,000. Only $3,000 of that actually came out of town funds. We were able to get a matching grant through the Washington Trust Company's Community Fund. And so with that $3,000 outlay to show a concept of what could be done there and make just a tiny bit of design work, now we have a $32 million building that's ready to go there. We're waiting for, grant money to come back, and hopefully that will be headed forward. But that's a pretty small investment to make for a pretty large return. And in the case of the circus lot, of that position of the circus lot and the amount of development that could go on Route 2 up against the street, the back, obviously, for flooding concerns, there isn't going to be a lot of development back there, but towards Route 2, if we were able to reorganize the different parcels there and make a design, a concept, which I think we could do in a pretty small budget way, we could probably, redevelop that area and make a big investment for downtown Pawcatuck. So I'm just going to push back a little and beg you to consider that.
Has anybody approached Westerly Water about giving it to us? It's got environmental issues. It's a dead wellhead. What do they want it for?
And actually, we've done 2 phases of environmental studies back there already with the EDC's budget, and there's no environmental concerns that have been brought up. Deb Downey has also been instrumental in helping to look at this with her background. And then just to summarize, I think like Sue said, Liberty Street very much could benefit from even, we think, just an initial concept plan that we could then leverage to go meet with developers to show what could be if they developed on Liberty Street and backed up to a pretty park with some little trails out there and access to the river versus what's there now, which is, I think, both a safety issue among other things.
But the question is, has anybody asked them if they would just donate it? It's not a lot of money.
Instead of getting that $35,000, they did say we could pay in very small increments. But again, this money wouldn't be, we still have an opportunity to talk to Westerly. This would not be to acquire it at this stage. We first want to do that first initial design drawing and talk to developers to see what kind of interest we could get before we move forward with any sort of purchase agreement with Westerly. And like Sue said, even if you want to bring this down from 10,000, even a few thousand, we think we can leverage to find some matching grants to get a drawing from URI students or others on kind of a landscape architect plan.
But the purpose of this is not to develop it. The purpose of it is to be the terminus for the Pawcatuck River Park, right?
It's to help revitalize those Liberty Street lots by looking at basically when you clean that up and you can show what can be back there, to have a PV5 build out, a commercial on the bottom, residents on top that overlook this pretty park instead of quite, honestly a challenged area.
So it's Mike, the example was shared that previously $3,000 was matched and you were able to do a bit of planning. Are we in a similar situation here? Would $3,000, you think, enable you to do such again?
We think so, as long as we can find another matching grant, but it worked amazing last time being able to bring that image to potential developers and show them what could be in another challenging lot. So yeah, obviously we take more, but I think 3,000 would be seed funding that we could definitely leverage this year.
What do you think, Mr. Chairman?
All right, I support that then.
I do too.
Thank you.
I'll concur. 3,000.
Thank you.
Jim, can you take line 98 down to 3,000, please?
Done.
Okay, then we come down to line 102. That's the one. Yep, with a 25,000 to contribution to open space acquisition fund. I think we ought to take this to $1.
I concur.
Agreed.
You don't have to spell it out. Acquiesce.
We've got an undesignated fund balance to use. I don't want to. All right, Jim, can you take line 102 down to $1, please?
Done.
Okay. And then is line 105 electric vehicle charging stations for $2,000?
Because that's 0.
Glenn's recommending to take that to 0. Do other members feel?
I have to agree.
I will push back and say, I think we should leave it to $1.
I think take it
I
to
don't care
0.
about $1 or 1 or 0.
Yeah, I would support $1 just in case opportunities presented itself. There are programs statewide that are working on these sort of funding. So to leave that option available, I think would be prudent.
Jim, can you take line 105 down to $1, please?
Done.
Okay. And then we are at outside agencies, Stonington Historical Lighthouse Restoration.
I think that's a 5K.
Glenn is recommending taking that 50 down to 5,000.
Yeah, it's another tough one, Mike. I don't think there's any way we can do the 50,000. But I do think we need to show some support here. It is, it is an important landmark for the town. So, I mean, I definitely want to do something. We funded at 5,000 next year. Maybe we go forward with 5 at the moment and see if we've got any flexibility later in the process here to do a bit more. But yeah.
I have to reluctantly concur.
Okay,
You
well,
guys know,
Jim,
you know how I feel. Yes.
Jim, can you take line 117 down to 5,000, please?
Done.
Roger.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask Director Sullivan for a status on what our mill rate is, what we've reduced to, and where we are?
Jim, did you hear that?
I did.
Sorry,
Okay,
can,
right now,
can we do it under the assumption that everything else you've already put through? We haven't gone through it necessarily in operating, but
right.
I guess let's assume that for simplicity's sake that we endorse what you're recommending, so that you're not giving us a set of mill rates that just don't make any sense.
Okay, we're down to 25.2 would be the mill rate. That's a 7.88% increase over prior year. The increase in the mill rate would be a 1.84% increase.
You mean 1.8 mils?
1.8 mils, yes. 7.88% increase.
We get those.
Well, we get a lot of asterisks in this too. So
That's true. So,
Okay.
however, even if we took half of the CARES funding coming to the town side and we're able to defray some of these costs with it, we're still pretty high.
yeah, I know.
All right.
Well, we still have Board of Ed SIP to do, right?
Yep, that, I was just changing my page to get the Board of Ed SIP. Who, is it just Peter?
I see Peter is for sure on that sure I'll get, there's so many other people on right now from outside
Okay.
agencies.
Now, I had a meeting with Mr. Anderson this past week.
Hang on 1 second before you get into that. If there are Board of Education members on, if Chairman Tedisco or Member Lord or someone is on and you're called in, can you hit *3 so that we can identify you and make sure you're unmuted? Or Dr. Riley, whoever.
There's only one call-in user on the line right now. Everybody else is in the meeting themselves. My name.
Okay. Do we know who that, so that one,
Definitely.
still, if that one call-in user is a Board of Education member or Dr. Riley, can you just hit *3 on your phone so that we can make sure to unmute you? Roger, you can just keep an eye on that. We're going to assume that it's not. Glenn, go ahead now.
Tim, this is Jim Sullivan. Can I interject real quick?
Yep.
Before we move on to SIP, I know when we, you and I discussed the funding for the police cameras yesterday, we decreased the ask from the $500,000 to $395,000 down to down 365 to the 135. And we discussed the reimbursement grant from OPM. We had a 150 in that. Did you want me to back that number out before we move away from this?
Yeah, well, that's what, Ted Schneider, have we clarified that all of those items are for the 30%?
As of right now, they clarified yesterday that everything we front-loaded is covered.
Okay.
For the 30%.
So Jim, yeah, let's go ahead and do that at this time.
So our net is 135 this year.
Our net outlay is 135.
We're going to get 30% of that.
The 30%, Jim's now going to plug into
the offset.
to the offset.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
All right. All right, so that grant is going to decrease by 109,500. Okay. Okay, very good.
Okay. Good to move on now, Jim?
Yep.
Jim, can you give me the new number for what the town side SIP is?
The town side SIP is 1 million. Oh, excuse me, no, hold on.
Oh, that'd be nice.
No, it's, that was just the police department. No, it's 2,308,352.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Now we're on to Board of Education. So, Mr. Frischman, go ahead.
As you remember, I had asked Mr. Anderson for his top priorities when we reviewed the Board of Ed's budget. And I had an opportunity to meet with him in person at the high school, actually climb on the roof and see the trucks. His number one request.
Those were separate. You didn't see the trucks on the roof.
No, didn't see
clear about that.
We climbed the roof afterwards. But his number one request was for $65,000 for the maintenance trucks. That's his highest priority. Followed by the roof ladders and cables, because there are ventilation stacks, part of the HVAC system, that were installed when the new wing was built that have never been checked. That was his number 2 priority. Now, the building management system was number 3. The high school rooftop units is a serious amount of money, and hopefully that can be included in CARES fund. But those items, those top 2 would be about close to $175,000. If you throw in the building management system, that would be another $157,000.
Okay. I had a conversation with the chair of the Board of Ed, who also echoed those sentiments, that those would be great. The one-to-one laptop, is Chris on? No? Okay. The district, the laptops and peripherals, I think that's the 410, or no, it's the 1-to-1, the 72.
It's 195. 21, 22 is 195.
There's one, yeah, sorry. I'm looking at what was it?
Line 130?
Yeah, line 130. It's the 195.
Tim, what do they mean by 1-to-1? Sorry.
That's just where every student, I believe, gets their own laptop to take home.
In what grades?
That I don't know.
All of them.
So we have Chromebooks and we have laptops?
I think these are the Chromebooks.
I think they're one and the same.
Okay.
But yeah. So I guess maybe the first 3 lines without getting into it.
Well, Tim, why the big jump? Do you know?
I just asked Roger if Chris was online, and I don't have the numbers in my notes, and he is not online right now. So what I would recommend is we leave the first 3 line items we leave for now, and we'll get clarification from Chris before Thursday.
We also might get some clarification. Is it even remotely possible that stuff could be covered under their $2.8 million gift defense?
So what I talked to the chair of the Board of Ed about, they have, much like the town has, a lot of learning to do quickly about how that money can and can't be spent. So if we can leave in the 2 trucks, the roof and ladder cables, and the computers, the rest of this we could take down, I think, to $1, pending more information from them about the funding that's come in and what they are able to spend it on.
Okay. So you're talking about putting $1 in for everything else?
That's at this point, that's probably what we're looking at, because then that either allows us to bond for it if the CARES Act cannot be used for it, or the CARES money that they've got can be used for it, and they'll be able to look at some of that in addition to the programming they've got to do and that kind of thing. So they weren't sure, when I talked to the Board of Ed chair, they were not sure at this time how much could be used for what, and they just wanted to be able to have the flexibility that if it can't be used by monies that they just received, that we have an avenue that we could look back and potentially find some other cost savings that we could apply there.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're saying leave line 130 alone. How about the other 128 and 129?
For right now, I would say 128, 129, and 130 leave alone.
Okay.
Till we get some clarity on those numbers.
Tim, so yeah, and just I think I did ask the Board of Ed last time, the Board of Ed, the administrative reps that were at the meeting, more detail on that 400,000, line 128. It's just such a big nut that there's so much in there. I really would like to see that broken out and prioritized. I'm not comfortable approving that as one big slug without any detail behind it.
Yeah, I don't love the even round number aspect of it.
That is, we got an email that I forwarded to you all from Chris Williston. I do not have it right here with me. And I don't know if it went in enough. That's all I'm saying is for right now, let's leave that until we can get Chris to answer these before Thursday. Okay, I'm not advocating we don't touch them. I'm just saying we don't have enough information. He's not online.
So basically, Tim, you're going to leave 128, 129, 130, and 155, and 134.
134. Yeah. Yep, 134 and 155.
Yeah, and everything else we're putting at one to $1.
That's what I would recommend at this point, yes.
Yeah, okay. What?
I'll get you. Hang on. So Jim, are you following me?
Let me ask you the question. So we're leaving the 400, the 20,000 and the 195.
Correct.
Then we're gonna leave the 107,800 for the roof ladders.
Correct.
And we're gonna leave the 65,000 for the 2 maintenance vehicles.
Yes.
Correct.
Is there anything else we're leaving?
No.
Everything else is coming out. Okay. All right.
And just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, on that, the impression you got, and Mr. Frischman as well, the impression you got is that the Board of Ed representatives were requesting us to proceed in this manner so that they could coordinate on COVID funding?
They were agreeing to proceed on this manner because of the unknown of the COVID funding and how they can apply it or not. Obviously, they'd prefer to go with us funding that, but knowing that there is a lot of confusion and moving parts, they were amenable to starting with that, with the knowledge that if they cannot use it, that they're going to be coming back to us to figure out how we can do it for some of these. And that's why I want to take them to $1, so that we could fund whatever, if there's an urgent, we can
If
take
we have to revisit it, we can.
Exactly.
Did they give any anticipated timeline on when they would have more certainty? I mean, does that fit within our, as far as when this actually goes out to the public to vote? I mean, do they anticipate being able to work within that timeline?
I did not get an indication one way or the other on that. I think much like us, you're trying to tackle it right now, and every time you think you know you're heading down a path, you run into a wall. So I think anyone who tried to tell you the timeline would be remiss.
Okay, thank you. That's useful.
Because they're trying to balance also programming, non-SIP items, SIP items, the whole totality of it. So I think they have promised to keep us updated, and as the process moves forward, we still have opportunities to revisit this and change back and pivot. So we're kind of all trying to help each other out right now, but also trying to figure out what we can do.
Tim, do we have any idea what they have left for current CARES funding?
The indication I was given was that they believe, but they didn't have, the chair didn't have the numbers in front of them, but they believe that was all consumed internally. But, I can't say that for sure or not, Lynn.
Okay.
Lynn, it's Mike. My understanding was when they presented the other night, they'd given us a list of $800,000, and there was still about $350,000 left. Now, I think they thought they would spend it, but they hadn't necessarily identified on what yet. Was my take on that conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's been committed, but not necessarily expended.
Mike, sorry, just one other thing. I want to go back to the comment I made about prioritizing that 400,000 in line 128. So Chris did send, to be fair, Chris did send a message. I'm seeing it now that does have, priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. So they've got switches for Stonington High School, access points for Stonington Middle School, but there are no dollars next to each of these. It's just here are the priorities. So I think we need the dollars in addition.
We can get back to them, back to Chris, and asking him to assign some dollar values to that.
Thank you.
Jim, are you up to speed with me here?
Yep, I think so. I think I got everything that was requested.
Okay. Where does that put us?
Okay, that puts us at
Will put us in a great spot.
overall for the percent change from prior year. increase in expenditures. It's 2.88% overall expenditures. As far as mill rate impact, that would put the mill rate at 24.02. That's an increase of 0.66 mils, a 2.83% increase in the mill rate over prior year.
And that's with everything there at $1.
Correct.
Oh, still at work to do.
Jim, with everything at $1, what's the Board of Ed's final SIP line?
When you say everything at $1, they still have $688 in there because it's 688,000.
What's that number?
The net number would be 688,316.
688,316. So
Right.
one thing to note is that, just back of the envelope, that gets you to about 3.5 million. And the most they're going to get is 2.8. Is that accurate?
That's my understanding. That's 688,000. 688,000 is the Board of Ed SIP, not the total SIP is $3 million.
I'm just saying, right? They requested 4.2, 4.3.
Right.
If they're, if we're left with the 688 is left, I'm just trying to figure out how far we're over the 2.8. Because
you're 700,000 over the 2.8.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind as well as we're running these numbers. Thank you.
All right.
That is total for the Board of Ed added to your edit.
I don't have the spreadsheet, so I'm not. I guess now I'll ask what the feeling of the board is, because now we would go through operating where we may see the biggest impact of that 1.8 that may or may not be able to be spent.
It's really kind of true to go to the operating budget without having a more concrete idea of what we can and cannot do.
Can you guys hear Glenn?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. I just want to make sure.
I feel that without having more definition about what we can and cannot do with that CARES money, we'd be spinning our wheels and wasting our time to go into the operating budget. I mean, I can come up with cuts, but maybe some of those might be able to be restored, or some might have to be attributed to other sources. I propose that we adjourn for the night and come back here when we know more about the disposition of those funds, both for the town and particularly for the Board of Ed.
It's Mike. One other suggestion, though, is I would like to, I think Jim had built in a number of assumptions based on prior discussions or maybe some additional assumptions you needed to make, Jim, but it'd be nice to be able to confirm what Jim has at least put in that Board of Finance budget. So maybe we can run through those quickly.
Yeah. That's a good suggestion. So Jim, do you want to go through the operating where you have put in the changes that we've discussed, but they haven't been necessarily memorialized by the board?
Well, just so you're clear, they are already included in the figures I just gave you. But yes, this is just to actually speak them out loud.
Yeah, and if there's anything you need input on, Jim, I don't know if you were debating on anything or yeah.
I don't think so. I just there's a new one that you weren't aware of or wasn't finalized. But I'll go through them. You'll see. All right. So the town clerk, there was an increase to clerical salaries of 3308 because of one of the positions. One of the clerical positions was made a deputy town clerk.
Can you point out the page number you're on, just as we're
okay.
6, line 25. Sorry. Yeah, 25.
Can you say that again, please?
Page 46, line 25.
No. It's
See, I don't have the right
It's the ones that have the
It's
blue shading, right?
Page 27.
Okay, that was those two.
Actually, you guys, if you're working off 7.1, we have a different numbering. I'm working off of 8.0.
Yeah, I'm on 8.0, the PDF you sent.
Right. So that would be page 27.
Yeah.
Line 98, clerical salaries. And that's one we did discuss during their budget presentation.
Yep.
Okay. And then if you go to human resource, administrative services, human resources, which is page 33. Yep. There was an increase of 54,000 to the health insurance line item, which was line 58. That's an adjustment the Director of Administrative Services made based on updated information from our benefits manager.
Do we feel that that's the final adjustment at this point?
That could change monthly. Every month that number can change. I think Patty could speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, I can speak to that. It was based upon the information from our benefits consultant on our last 2 months of claims experience. I will say that I was trying to be conservative and budget what I really feel we needed and come up with an accurate budget. So for that reason, I did do the increase. It's possible as we get to the actual renewals, that number could go down a bit. And again, I could probably take that down by $20,000 from the increase I put in, but I was trying to be realistic and put in what I felt we would spend, and that's why I did increase it. But, our claims experience has been pretty decent the past, couple of years. We saw a spike, and that's the reason I did do the increase. I still think we'll be in pretty good shape, so if it would help, I could probably reduce that increase by $20,000 if that would help.
And you don't think, Patty, that would put us in any jeopardy?
No, we aren't close to dipping into the reserves. I didn't budget by dipping into reserves as part of my budget process. So if we have a catastrophic claims year, that is when we dip into the reserves, which we do have sufficient funding. So we do have that there. I did build in enough for IBNR into that. So I built that into my budget as well. So I think the budget is pretty, but I think I can take $20,000 off if that would help just a little bit, and I still think we'll be in okay shape.
So we take that 54 to 34?
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, can you change that line 58 from 54,000 increase to a 34,000 increase?
Yep. Okay, let me see. Okay, done. All right, then the next one, and on that same page, administrative services, there was an increase to life insurance of $985. Patty had received just the latest quote on our insurance premiums, that life insurance premiums since the last budget. Okay, and then if you want to go to the tax collector on page
46.
Yes, page 46. Again, the 33,112 increase to clerical salaries, same thing. One of the two clerical tax assistant positions, one was made a deputy, got the same bump as the previous discussion, and I think that was addressed during budget presentations as well. And then if we move down to Board of Finance, we're going to take $500,000. We took $500,000 out of it tonight. I also decreased the OPEB contribution by $5,000 previously. We finally got the OPEB report last week, and I was able to knock $5,000 off of that. Then if we go down, just same page, go down a few lines to property and liability insurance. Initially I'd increased the budget line item by $20,000. I knew there was going to be an increase to our lap policy and our cyber insurance And it turned out I had to increase that by 31,000. So I had to add another $11,000 on when I got the final information from that last week as well.
Jim, can I just ask you, going back to that $500,000, is that,
Yep.
so is that 0.66? I mean, that's coming out, correct?
That's correct.
And so that 0.66 will be impacted by that, correct? That 0.66 does not reflect at this time, removing that?
0.66.
The current mill rate increase, the last number that we did.
The last number, the mill rate impact right now is 0.65 after that latest adjustment.
Yeah.
So that includes the $500,000 coming out.
That includes removing the 500.
It does.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So as far as getting back to the insurance, so I had put in $20,000 thinking that would be enough to cover the lap in the cyber policy. The cyber policy alone was a $16,000 increase. Prior to this year, it was actually quote unquote free through our Kerma policy. They're no longer carrying that policy, so we had to go out to a third party. I have one quote in for $16,000, so that's the number I put in. I have another quote coming in. If that number goes down, I'll let you know, but I don't expect it to. I think those numbers are for real. So looking at a $31,000 increase to insurance. It was a bad year for insurance. We were lucky. I think we're lucky to see, as far as just the lap and workers' comp, I think we're very lucky that we didn't see bigger increases. Commercial markets are exploding. We were limited. We were locked into an agreement where our maximum increase could be 3% for our lap policy, and that's what they hit us with. So I think we're fortunate. Okay, that's that. And anything else? And I think we discussed at the last meeting again, the Department of Police Services, the retirement contribution to the MERS decreased by 21,000 based on the final contribution rate I got 2 weeks ago. So I think that's all the changes that were touched on last week and are incorporated into this document when we started. Any questions about that?
No questions there, Jim, but like anything on the revenue side that we need to discuss? I mean, that's new information that you sent recently.
Well, it's if you want to go through it, excuse me, if you want to go through it, we'll go through it.
Well, I guess not necessarily. I wasn't necessarily suggesting we go line by line, but I'm just curious as to whether there was anything there that
I think a lot of our other revenues are going down. If not a lot, at least a little. I think everything went down. It's going down a bit from prior year. We're at or above budget amount because we always conserve very in the current fiscal year, but it's not as much as we're usually over. So I was very conservative on the revenue figures. If you want to take a look at it and ask me any specific questions, notice solid waste is down. That's down $70,000 or so based on projected collections or revenues for solid waste as predicted by the solid waste manager.
Yeah.
Other than that,
anything on grants, Kim? Anything there that you're worried about?
No, the grants. Well, the grants are all proposed. Nothing's been finalized. These are all what was proposed in the governor's budget, and they haven't been changed since that. So this is all the grant numbers are, I would say, best case scenario. Might they get adjusted downward in the next couple of weeks? They very well could be. I wouldn't bet my life against it. So.
Okay, so they're based on at least some data that was published by the governor's office at this point.
Yes, yep, it comes right out of the budget,
right?
And verified by CCM.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Jim, do you know what our collection rate is, or has been this year?
Oh, it's got to be 99 plus, 99% plus, I would say. It's a little ridiculous to be actually. I mean, I think people want to make sure that all the town hall staff get paid.
Actually, I think it's banks want to make sure that repo their property.
Yeah, I expect we'll exceed our budgeted tax revenue figures.
Okay.
Linda's on. Is she?
Linda.
Yep. Linda, do you want to talk about collection rates?
She here?
She just unmuted herself. Unless she's having a problem with her headset, I can't, she's right there, but unmuted.
We can't hear you, Linda, if you can hear us.
She's doing a great job, so.
Well, I'll say this overall, just looking at the 4 lines of tax revenues, I'm predicting that the current levy will come in $125,000 above over what we budgeted. I think prior years we're probably going to be 40,000 short than what we budgeted, but that's to be expected when your current rate collection is so high. You got to expect your prior year's revenue numbers to start dropping. So that's not a surprise. So I actually dropped that number by 10,000 going into for 21-22. I expect that number to continually go down or at some point plateau, but it's our prior year's receivables go down every year. Our collection rates are so good. And the other 2 numbers, motor vehicle, I bumped that up 5,000. I should be 10,000. I think that's just based on valuation of cars and so forth. And then interest and lien fees, I dropped that by $50,000 just because, again, as your prior year's taxes go down, your collectibles go down. So will the interest and lien fees you're collecting on those. So those 2 numbers move together. So.
And Jim, Mike again, what did you assume on the debt? Did you assume that you'd refinance?
I didn't touch the debt. That number, that's still up in the air. Nothing's been decided. So that's actually a agenda item after budget deliberations. We need to talk about approving the resolution so we can move forward, getting the official statement prepared by our financial advisor. And when I ask having said that, you can approve the resolution. That doesn't mean we have to go forward. We can pull the plug on this at any time, but this is what makes it official so we can get wheels in motion and get documents prepared.
Right. But assuming that moves forward, we would get some favorability there on that line then.
Yes, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? I sent you out to 2 scenarios. We're looking over the terms of the bonds over the next 15 years, 14 or 15 years. By refunding, we can save, $850,000 to $900,000. Well, $850,000, allowing for time value of money. The question was, if that number holds, come in a month and a half or 2 months when we actually go to market, do you want to structure the refunding so you get the savings up front? Right now, we could take a $650,000 savings in 21-22, or do you want to spread that over the remaining 14 years of those bonds? So that was the question that we threw out at last meeting, and hasn't been resolved to my understanding. So we could talk about that later, I think, in this meeting in more detail if you'd like. But yes, the short answer is either way, that should, worst case scenario, knock down our debt service by $50,000 or $60,000 in year 1 in 21-22. Excuse me.
Yeah, all right. So that's the minimum. Yeah, 50 or 60. Okay.
I got there eventually.
So I guess, Mike, other questions, or Lynn or Bob?
I just want to say that Linda Camilio just texted me to say that we have about $300,000 of deferred tax payments that are due in April. So there's that too. Okay. From the deferral program that we had.
Right.
Well, everything is riding on the CARES funds.
Yeah, that's
It kind of
the,
seems like they've tied our hands, strangely. I don't really understand what their motivations were about giving you the money and making it almost impossible to use it.
I don't think it's impossible to use. I think it's just gonna take more than 2 days to just look through and figure out, exactly what we can and can't use for. I think, we look at the school side and the town side and, I think on the school side, they give more guidance. I'm sure they just wanna go through it a little bit more carefully.
That would be good.
What's the feeling of the board? Would you like to go through operating now, or?
I'd like to have a clearer picture before we invest in options. We may have to redo it.
How about, Lynn? How about your feeling?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Would you like to start going through operating budget now, or should we push that to Thursday and hope that we get more clarity based on input from Congressman Courtney's office?
I think there's a couple of things that we can discuss off the top of our head. So if we're sitting here, we might as well get it done. But, most of this is very dependent on the CARES funding.
Mike, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I guess maybe there are a couple items that I'm not sure would matter, CARES funding or not. That just I think I would adjust them either way. I don't. Maybe we knock out some like Lynn might have a couple. I might have a couple. Maybe we just again agree to do those. If there's consensus among the board, and then we'll just shoot the team. We've got kind of everything behind us that we want to get behind us.
Okay. Want to start into those?
Sure.
Let me just say one thing. I want to make sure we leave time at the end of this meeting because we need to do a bid waiver request from the police for the use of Axon for the body cameras, and that was that part that we're not expending funds now, but they need a bid waiver so they can sign the contract before the end of this month to save that 8%. So I'd like to do it now. If members are okay, can we do that now?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can I get a motion to approve bid waiver request from the police to use Axon Enterprises for the body cameras and the dash cams for the total of $136,266.40?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
So I get a motion from Glenn, a second from Lynn. Any questions about this for Lieutenant Schneider, who's in the room?
Well, Tim, this is Jim Sullivan. I would like to amend that to a bid waiver for the whole amount, since we're going to be signing this. It's going to be a 5-year contract. So I would like to see the bid waiver for
Glenn will
400.
withdraw the motion. Make the motion again for the 464,187.80. I think you're right, Jim. Yep.
So
Right. With 135,000 to be funded in the 21-22 budget, and the remaining 4 years to be funded in succeeding fiscal years, pending approval during the budget process.
That's your motion. Glenn just made that motion, and Lynn again seconded it. Any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of the bid waiver, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please state your name and that you're opposed. Okay, bid waiver is through.
Okay, Tim, as long as we're doing other items, then can we tackle the debt resolution, the refunding resolution?
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, Jim. I thought I had it on my computer, but I don't.
I don't have it either.
Okay, well, it's a resolution appropriating up to $9 million for the purpose of refunding and refinancing bonds of the town that are issued and outstanding, and authorizing the issuance of up to $9 million of bonds to meet said appropriations. Again, all this resolution would do would just allow us to start moving forward. We're not committing anything at this point. We can pull the plug anytime up until we accept a bid sometime in May.
Now, do you need to know now, Jim, in terms of how we would attribute the savings? Would that be
Nope.
part of the motion?
No, we don't need that information at this point. I just need the approval of the resolution authorizing the refunding of $9 million.
Yes, Mike, I'd make a motion to approve the resolution as articulated by Jim.
Second, Bob Stachin.
Got a motion from Mike, a second from Bob Stachin. Any discussion from members on the resolution or questions? No, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any
Okay.
opposed, please state your name if you're opposed. All right, that unanimously passes.
Okay, but as far as the restructuring, if you can give that, everyone could give that some thought, maybe at the end of Thursday's meeting, we might be able to reach a consensus on that. That would be helpful.
Will do, Jim. We'll work on that to get that for Thursday to give you some direction.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else on the agenda, Jim, before I go back?
Just follow-up questions from earlier departmental budget presentations, if there were any that haven't been addressed. I think I've sent written responses to addressing each of those issues that were raised in prior meetings.
Yep. Okay, let's go through the operating, a couple lines, Mike, that you said you might have. Lynn has some, and then we can take a look at where we're at, and then I think it'll probably make sense to pause at that point and come back on Thursday.
Right. Yep. I'm happy to start. So the first one I've got is in the police department budget. So row 20, line 20, the police support specialist. I think they made a good case for that position. I would support the position, but I believe that they've got plenty of wiggle room in their salaries for regular officers, and that's 5 vacant positions in there that are fully funded. So my suggestion would be to leave row 20 or line 20 in place at 75,000, but reduce line, line 5, salary for regular officers by $75,000. Because again, there should be plenty of room there, given that they've got 5 current vacancies. And my understanding was that was fully funded. Those were all fully funded in the budget.
Chief, you wanna?
They're fully funded, Mike, and our plan is to have all those positions filled hopefully by July 1st. So we actually have academy slots and interviews being conducted in the next couple of weeks with the Board of Police Commissioners. So we plan on filling all those spots. If you'd like, because of the timing of the body cameras and the reality of how far along we are in the year and to get this up and running, I would suggest that if we could keep that line item but drop it to 37.5 and then fund that particular position in January instead of right at July. That way, all the stars and moon lines up with us as far as timing goes with everything that we have going on.
What Member Farbark is proposing is actually a reduction in end strength. We're already removing 1 patrol spot to convert it to a sergeant. I prefer the chief's idea, and I would support that, to structure the support specialist with an effective date of 1 January, thereby reducing that amount by half.
Yep. So it sounds like that will happen, right? That would happen. I guess then the question is whether the chief feels he's fully staffed as of the beginning of the fiscal year and remains fully staffed for the full fiscal year. Is that what the chief's saying?
That is my goal. That is always our hope. And as you can tell, certain things happen throughout the year, but we can't predict that. So we budget for the full strength that we have, and we hope that happens. It's looking good for us at this point in time, for July 1st to have everybody on board or very close to it at that point in time. So I'd hate to go the opposite direction and not have the funding, and then we'd have to delay. We actually have academy slots for July, June. We actually have them starting in June. So.
Right. Okay. Well, then, yeah. All right. Then I guess I'm okay if at a minimum. Yeah. Then if we do that, 5, we cut that in half on line 20. But it did feel like between those two lines, we had more than we could realistically spend in the current fiscal year.
Chief, this is Bob Statchin. Do you have an idea of how often are you regularly at 100% manning? Is that the standard, or what sort of fluctuation is on that has been over maybe the past 3 to 5 years? Thanks.
The reality of having almost 40 employees that you're always going to have somebody out sick. It could be a retirement. It could be somebody leave. So, I mean, since I've been here, we've had, I believe, 3 or 4 instances where we've been where we had everybody up and running. And then we just have to fill it, because if not, you can see how long it takes for us to get an employee up and going. So we have to strike while the iron's hot when it comes to personnel and the hiring process that's there. I think at this point in time, we have all systems are go right now for filling those spots. And I don't foresee that anything down the line unless we have a couple more retirements that are possible. Not guaranteed, because nobody's put in for that at this particular time. A couple of years ago, I know Chairman O'Brien had concerns about the number of people that could leave. That number has dropped about half right now compared to what it was the liability when we had, I think we had 11 people that could have retired at any particular time, and that would have been devastating to the police department. Right now, I think it's down to 5 or 6. I think we're down to 5 off the top of my head.
Are members good? Go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to say that the operating budget, the CapEx for the PD for this year, and kind of just growing by leaps and bounds. And I realize that some of it's mandates and, technology and all of that, but I don't think any department is untouchable in terms of, I'm not sold yet on the new position.
You cut out there, Lynn. We missed the end of what you were saying.
Oh, I said I'm not sold on the new position yet.
So, Jim, can you change line 20 down to 37,500 for now?
Done.
Thank you. Mike, other?
Sorry, Tim, you can come back to me. I'm still flipping through my book here, preparing. So maybe I'll give others a chance.
Did you have any?
If I could just comment to Chief Stewart again one more time, and following up on Lynn's comment as far as that position. One of the things that somewhat stands out is that the budget increased. I guess the last number I heard was 4.06%. The Board of Finance at the beginning of the season had come out asking at about 1.5%. And I think, we got organizations like the Board of Ed coming at 2.5. So I would just ask, during this sort of fluid period when there's CARES money coming in and there's different issues as far as hirings and whatnot, if you could just revisit to see if you could come more in line with what the Board of Finance had originally requested, or in line with what some of the other agencies are doing as well, just to consider that and see if that is possible in this process. Thanks.
Well, this is Jim Sullivan. Right now, after all the adjustments made tonight, Where we stand is we're at 2.8% increase in expenditures, not necessarily mill rate, but in expenditures, 2.8%. General operations, 1.94, education, 2.5, debt service, 0.6, but capital improvements is still at 22.8% or 22.9. So that's.
But the capital improvements, we zeroed stuff to it, a ton of stuff out that hasn't gone away.
But it's still, yeah, but it's still an increase of 560,000 over
Well,
prior year.
I know. So there's still plenty to do here.
Okay, and if I may, I just want to, I think WPCA was a question that members had during that budget presentation, specifically the director's request for an increase to the town subsidy of $50,000. During that meeting, the board members had asked the director of WPCA to provide his operating budget, which that has been provided. So I just wonder if there was any follow-up questions about that request.
Not at the moment, thanks.
Okay.
Well, should we talk about other new positions?
Go ahead, Lynn.
So in human services, I don't dispute the need for somebody while there's a pandemic raging and all of that, but I'm wondering if CARES funds can be used to fund that on, say, a 1099 basis, like an independent contractor, until we see what the long-term need really is.
Leanne can come in on this, but I'd say two things on that. One is, I think she's tried to make it clear, and I fully agree that this is something that's been needed for years. It's going to continue to be needed. It's obviously COVID's impacted it, but it has been a need. COVID has just brought it to the forefront, but I don't see this going anywhere, and I would just hesitate, not really opposed to it, but I hesitate to use this one-time infusion to fund a program that I hope we see as a permanent addition to a very small overworked team.
Mr. Chairman, may I comment on that?
Leanne, are you on still?
I am, yes.
Do you want to comment before we get too far down?
Yeah.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Just to reiterate what I had briefly discussed during my presentation on March 4th, I have experienced over 3,000 increase in contacts, and that's basically due to COVID and unemployment and the issues going on with childcare, et cetera, over the past year. That being said, alone in our department, we're averaging around 5,700 to 6,000 contacts related to social services. That's not even including youth and family services, which encompasses mental health, which is what this position would also be responsible for. And looking at our department, just over the past 5 fiscal years, we've been pretty steady at 5,700 to 6,200 contacts per year. That's a lot for one full-time person. And what's ended up happening over the years is because we've been trying to restructure ever since many years ago, we had some positions spot and it left us in a really difficult position. We've been trying to restructure and get by. And as Danielle said, we're really in a position where we're working our best ability to meet the needs of the taxpayers. We're going above and beyond, working with our partner agencies when we can. But for one full-time person right now to focus on social services and to not have a full-time mental health position in-house, we have 2 very, very part-time individuals. We really, really need this help at this time and going forward. And I can guarantee, due to the outreach that we've been able to master through Events Magazine and social media outreach, I sent an email to Chairman O'Brien earlier and basically said, our increased contacts aren't specific to our town being in dire straits, but that we're doing a really great job at outreach to let people know that we're here if they need us. And so I think we would continue to see our contacts grow, whether it's in regards to mental health or supportive programs in general. That not even including the benefits of the interaction that we would have with first responders and the police department, and how this position would be a straight liaison for that. So COVID aside, we are in need of an extra contact at this time. Unlike our recreation programs, it's a little more challenging to 1099 individuals to come into this type of position, as we really want someone to make strong connections with our community, and that we would like that person to stay. And when we're talking about part-time positions and contractors coming in, there's a lot of turnover when we're discussing that. And I think in this scenario specifically, when we're talking about people at the most challenging places in their life, whether it's due to financial hardship, domestic violence, whatever, to have one person that really has those strong interpersonal connections in the community, knows our town, and is really an integral part of our team would be really, really great to move forward at this time. And I welcome any questions and happy to provide any data after the fact that you all might have questions on. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think that in this environment, I don't think it's the town's place to provide this service. I'd rather see the money go to the neighborhood center and give them an increase rather than adopt and saddle the taxpayers with a whole set of benefits for a full-time position.
With all due respect, we're already doing it, and we're just underfunding people, and they're burning out, and we're not providing a healthy work environment. So we're already doing it. They're already calling, and we can't turn them away. And this is something, we have a very small human services department and restaurant compared to other towns. They don't ask for much. They almost ask for nothing. They're the smallest part of our budget, and they're asking for this, and they really don't ever ask.
You know, they may be a small department, but that doesn't mean that I should just fund that position. I don't see it. I don't think it's the role of the town.
They're overworked, in all due respect.
Well, this is a free market system. They're overworked. They can seek alternative employment opportunities.
But our residents are seeking services that we're not able to provide.
And we're never going to be able to meet
We are, though.
the whole demand. The poor you will have always with you.
We will be able to meet that with this. The other thing I would like to just draw attention to while we're talking about this is that during our Board of Selectmen meeting, Deb Downey and June Strunk, again, separate to this position, just because we all like data and analysis, did look at the salaries of the two select people, and we did find them out of range with both other towns and where they have been historically. And so they both very graciously offered up $10,000 from each of their salary line items, which would be a permanent $20,000 offset to operating funds. They specifically highlighted the need for this position as a motivating factor, but I will just share, in looking at Waterford, Peachline, and even Westport, Connecticut, what they say their other select people ranges from 2,000 to max 1,000. So we already were very out of range with the nearly 15,000. So they're amazing public servants. That's why they're doing it. It is partially because of this decision, but it's also because it was out of line. And June Strunk brought up the fact that we pay our treasurer just under 5,000, and that again was another data point to consider. So we are asking that both of their line items in the first section budget each be reduced by 10,000. Hopefully put it.
No, that would not be necessarily the case. The Board of Finance allocates by position. That's wonderful that the members of the Board of Selectmen want to reduce their salaries. It actually should go to salary first level from when it's paid.
Yes, and I will respectfully decline it and put it towards the chief of the position.
But that really not be your option. Decide where that money goes. Well, the chief's ready to deal with it.
No, but I wouldn't be able to, just to a point that part of the Public Act came out for the police accountability bill that is starting to go towards the mental health evaluations and having resources in your community to assist the police with these type of calls. And there's actually a feasibility study that each community had to do when it comes to the possibility of a social worker interacting with the police department to assist them in the calls that are going on. This is something that is on the tracks. It's going that way, whether we like it or not, whether we want it part of our budgets or not. It's going in that direction to do those type of things. And when you look at an ambulance go by, count 10 of them, and at least 2 of them are a mental health issue in this community, day in and day out. And that is the mental health calls that we are going on right now on a daily basis and are attempting to follow up on after the fact to try and get people back and provide them with the services to get well, and not to have the issues that we have with suicide, with the drug dependency that we have. The opioid stuff didn't go away. That stuff was still, I mean, COVID made the headlines, but people are still dying in the community and need follow-up with these types of things. So our partnership, and quite respectfully, Mr. Frischman, was sort of based off the model that Deanna from years ago, Mrs. Rushlow, if you remember her, about 15 years ago with the domestic violence program that led into social services type of atmosphere where they assisted any family in need, but also was based out of the police department so that they were actually following up with families no matter what that happens to be to try and assist them. And that was that sort of attached to the hip with human services, with Mrs. Stewart at the time, who, you know, we have that good relationship there that we were able to do that. So it's a little bit of trying to get the band back together when that worked. And how that worked years ago was a bit of a model that to this day is starting to be used in other communities. So I think no matter what goes on, we're going to go in that direction, or need to go in that direction, because we've had to assign officers to go out and do that, and do that. And you keep seeing these different things that are being piled onto us to go out and do. We have one officer, that's all she did was go out on these type of calls and follow up and go to the people, follow up with them day in and day out. And that was her job, just to go out there and do that. And it was very, very successful. So we're going to continue to see these type of things as a community that are not going to go away. And in many cases, the police aren't going to be able to solve this. The police aren't the answer to a lot of these calls. We are not.
I don't think the town of Stonington is the answer either. I don't think the taxpayers should be saddled with that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in, Chief, I really appreciate your comments, and I think your perspective on this is very valuable. And I think you are seeing accurate trends as the value of a position like this. I just want to make sure Leanne knows a couple of people have questioned this. There is support on the board, at least from my perspective, to fund this position. I think it is important. I think it's important at this time to do that. And I also think it is a role. And one of the things that I think really adds to the value of this is I think Leanne has a track record of running a tight ship and an effective organization. And I do feel if she was given an additional asset, that would be used in an effective manner, and she would use it efficiently in an area that, as the chief has pointed out, certainly is the trend for providing such services. So I just want to, we're not deciding things tonight. I guess we're kind of going over some of these, but I want to make sure that the impression is that there's not any support on the Board of Finance, because I certainly would support funding that position. Thank you.
It's Mike. I'll jump in and I'll second what Bob said. I feel similarly. He said it well, but we always don't all have the same opinions, and this is one. Where, I think there's probably just as much support as there is opposition. So, we're probably gonna have to vote on this one at some point.
Well, to be clear, I'm not opposed. I'm simply looking for a way to pay for it with other funds that we're getting for the time being, and then deal with it 2 years from now. Because the problem is that the budget keeps growing and it's exceeding people's ability to pay for it. There's that too. And what we've done tonight is we've dollared out a bunch of stuff that we still have to deal with. This budget is still expensive in a time when a lot of people in this town, as is evidenced by Leanne's work, are in trouble. So I'm just looking for creative ways to do whatever we can to kind of smooth out the lumpiness of the effect of the pandemic. So I'm not opposed to the position. I understand that we need it, and it was just a way to spend some of the CARES money that's looking like it's not so easy to spend.
And last but not least, Deb Norman, also in favor. We couldn't get a chance to say that as well. I know we're not voting on it, but Glenn, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on this one.
Oh, that's fine. I have no problems with your disagreement.
All right, so I think what the sense I've got here is that for right now, we're going to leave it as is because we don't have any answers on the CARES funding and how that can be applied or not applied. So that, I think I get the sense, because I will say that I'll support this position, but I agree with Lynn, we got to really figure out that CARES funding and how we can get that money in. So I think, to Lynn's point of looking at this more as how do we fund it now versus later might make more sense. So I think right now what I'd recommend is we just leave it as is until we get more information, hopefully for Thursday. I don't even know that we'll have more information then though.
If I may interject just very quickly, we will have some grant funding coming our way. We've started to get payments to offset our counseling line. We will be returning approximately $15,000 during this fiscal year. Last year, we returned over $40,000 to the general fund that we didn't use in different capacities due to grants that we received. And I very much appreciate the good, thoughtful dialogue surrounding this and the support, and welcome any further questions. Thank you so much.
All right, were there other things people wanted to discuss this evening, or do we want to take a fresh look on Thursday when we have some more information?
Wait, there's one more position. That's the technology person for Roger. And that one, I see no way around. So that's.
I agree with you, Lynn. I think the sense that I get from the board members is, and I'm hearing from Mr. Frischman next to me saying that he totally agrees with you.
Absolutely committed to that. That's vital townwide.
So I think that one has a in better place. Other things people would like to discuss this evening, or are we at a point that people want to pause, take a review, and hopefully we hear from the Congressman about funding?
Chairman, this is Jim Sullivan again. There's one thing I'd like to touch on again in my budget and finance. We during budget presentation, we discussed the $35,000 that the Board of Finance had approved in this current fiscal year to help me bridge the gap with the changeover of staff in my department. We haven't had to use any of that money. I left it in this year. I left it in for 21-23, hoping I could do something creative with it. I actually have a different approach at this point. What I would like to do is take the $35,000 that's in this year's budget that I haven't had to use, and use encumber 18,000 of it going into 21-22, and use that to upgrade, move to the ASP system for our GL system. And we talked about that in the last meeting. It would be first year implementation of fee of $7,500 and an annual fee of about $11,000 or $10,000 annual service fees. I could spend pay for that in 21-22 by using a portion of the money budgeted in 2021, and then the 35,000 request for 21-22 would go away altogether, and then come 22-23, I would just probably need about an increase of 10 or 11,000 in that fiscal year to my equipment and software support line item going forward. So if I'm fully prepared to, regardless, I'm fully prepared to withdraw my request for the 35,000 in the 21-22 budget.
How do members feel about that? Personally, I think that, where would you put it in equipment, software, and support then, Jim?
Well, what I would do in this current fiscal year, I would transfer it from financial and technical professional services into my equipment and software support for 2021. And I wouldn't anticipate actually spending the funds until 21-22, but I would encumber the 2021 year funds, so I'd be able to carry them over and spend them in succeeding year. That would be my plan.
Yep. Okay.
So sounds like you have flexibility.
And so in the current fiscal year, I would turn back about $16,000 or $17,000 of that $35,000 line item.
Okay. Mike, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say, it sounds like if Jim has the flexibility, that would be a creative way to come at it.
Yeah. Questions from other board members?
No, I think it makes sense.
Jim, let's go ahead and make that change.
Okay.
So we'll take line 18 to 0. And then we'll do a line item transfer maybe at our next regular meeting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Make sure they get on the agenda so we can do it.
Yep. That's why I said at the next regular meeting. So.
Tim, I have a question. Not about that.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Danielle, did I hear you say that the generous offer from Deb and June is a permanent thing?
Permanent, yes. We think that is fiscally prudent for taxpayers and in line with what our surrounding communities do.
Okay, thank you. And that is generous, ladies.
So that is not referenced in these numbers, right?
Jim should take those.
Do you want to do that now?
Yes.
10 from each?
10 from each.
Okay, Jim, can you go to page 18 for the first selectman's office? Can you take line 2 and line 3 down by 10,000?
Okay. Done.
Is there anything else members would like to do tonight? The final thing, once we're set with members, I want Jim to give us an updated numbers at the end. So want to make sure we captured everything. Go ahead, Mike.
It's like maybe more a request than a proposed change at the moment, but maybe a request for Barbara and the Highway Department for Thursday. I mean, they're still looking at a pretty substantial operating expense increase of almost 10%. And, as we were challenging Chief a moment ago on the police side, I would be interested in understanding from Barbara, if we needed her to start working that down, what are a few of the lines? And one of the things I guess I was hoping to see that maybe I've just got version control issues here, but I was kind of curious to look at the projected actuals for the current year. Did those get updated for the Highway Department, Jim?
They didn't get updated by anyone. I wasn't provided with any fresh information since that last meeting. I apologize.
Okay. So I mean, my hunch is, or even I think during discussions that we noted maybe there were a couple line items that were, the actuals, projected actuals would come in below the original budget for the current fiscal year, and so when they're looking at a potential increase for next year, it's off already, potentially an inflated base already relative to the projected actuals for the year. So again, it's more maybe a request than a specific proposed adjustment at the moment, but where would Barbara maybe be able to trim a little bit in her operating expense budget?
And Mike, just to clarify, are you just looking at highway or also engineering as part of that?
Yeah, I was primarily looking at highway, just given the size, the magnitude of the spend and the magnitude of the increase. But certainly if there are other opportunities, I'm sure the rest of the board would be open to hearing about it, but
yeah, and we can dig in deeper, but I would just note probably the largest change is a brand new line item for bridge maintenance. And that's like a 7,000% increase. So I know that threw things off, but if there's other specific line items, we can certainly look through those.
Yeah, or if we fund, I know that there's a sidewalk line item here, line 17, and we also we're talking about funding sidewalk in CIP. And I recognize some of it's more maintenance and repair versus new sidewalk, but but yeah, that's a pretty substantial increase at over 100%, year over year. Do we maybe have some flexibility there if we're still funding the SIP at the level we've indicated? That would be one.
I can talk to that because I actually asked for that increase, and that has to do with what Barbara mentioned at the start, that study they did where, how much of the sidewalk repair that we already own are we actually improving upon? So this is for existing sidewalks versus in the SIP. Those are the new ones that are coming in, and then the ADA is completely separate. So these are just fixing sidewalk repairs. I think we mentioned during the last, when we presented on the two, we do have pet lawsuits that come in regard to not fixing the sidewalks. We're already fixing a number of them. So just, we're biting off a very small percentage of what we currently need to do. So again, that's at your guys' discretion, but we did feel like we needed to advocate for a little bit more.
Yeah, so, and this is Barbara McCrell. And like I said, in 2019, we did an inventory of the sidewalk condition, and we have a backlog of $3.9 million in repair. So assuming no depreciation at the funding level of what I originally requested of $100,000, we'd be able to address those repairs in 39 years. If you funded it at $150,000, we'd be able to address our backlog in 26 years. At our current level of $72,000, we'd be able to address it in 54 years. And sidewalks, and that's assuming that there's no depreciation of the life of your current sidewalks or inflation on the cost to repair the sidewalks. And sidewalks, we, at the best case, have a 75-year life. My point being is that historically, we've been significantly underfunded on this line item for 34 miles of sidewalk that are currently existing. So, but I will, that I'm sharing it. I'm trying to be responsible, share out the information that I have, and ask for some small increase. And I can put it down to back down to 72, and put our numbers back down and work within the limitations. I'm just, I wrote a very long commentary and tried to explain why our costs were being put where they were. I've been here 7 years now, and I've gained a lot of experience and knowledge of the operations of the highway department, and also facilities is higher too. But we've got buildings that are, pieces of the buildings are falling off of them from lack of repair. The 4th District Hall over the last 10 years, you can look at the budget. It was funded for maintenance of that building at between $700 and $800 a year. And that includes keeping the plumbing and the heating working in that building. So that's what we've put in there on average historically.
Right.
And so I was just trying to make people aware.
Yeah, no, the context is good. And so again, I think you're in a better position certainly than I am to assess where there might be some room, or maybe I'm looking at line 51, snow removal, at 1 year that was only 41,000, and now it's budgeted at at 130,000, or materials. The next line, I think, you jotted a note down that you were expecting maybe 20,000 of favorability here, whereas we left the number flat. So 20,000 here, 30,000 there. A few of these, it'll help. So, and again, you know better than I. You're the one who runs the department. But I'm just asking if you could maybe to take a closer look at a few of these lines that seem like they maybe are, they're on the high end of where they've ever been, historically.
Good. And for snow removal, I will look at where we are right now on that line item, but I think at the moment we're almost fully expended for snow removal expense. This year we went over in labor and we're under in materials, and it fluctuates depending on the weather. We've had call-in, all our snow removal is based on call-ins from the police, and and making sure the roads are safe before we leave. So But yeah, actually right now we've expended 98.3% of the snow removal budget. So, and actually the snow removal budget is flat. Historically, I don't change the snow removal budget line item. I just leave it where it is. And over the last 2 years, I have come back and I utilized that. Last year, I came back and we utilized some of the snow removal budget to buy some equipment. And so, you know, any changes in expenditure purpose for any funding that's given me, I've always come back and asked approval for it to be utilized in some other way.
Yep.
So.
Hey, I found one thing that definitely should fit to CARES. Tim, it's a whopping 15 grand. It's the library. So CARES should definitely, that seems to suit what that's for.
And I'm here if you have any questions about that, Michaela Hall.
Now we know what it's for. That should be an easy one for the CARES.
Thank you, Lynn. And I'm happy to provide any information. I was talking to Deb earlier, so just let me know.
Do any members have anything else at this time? Or should we do a summary from Jim and then adjourn to Thursday?
That.
Summary.
Okay, Jim, can you give us a summary of where we are, please?
All right, for overall expenditures, we're at, you want this just total or you want to go by segment?
Segment.
Are you doing segments in terms of operating or?
General operations, education, debt service, capital improvement.
That's fine. Okay, that segment is fine. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So general operations, we're at 24,029,407. That's a $403,600 increase over prior year, a 1.71% increase. Education, obviously no changes were made tonight, but that their refined budget is revised budget is $38,335,596,000. That's a $934,500 increase over prior year, or 2.5% increase. Debt service, again, no adjustments tonight. We may have an adjustment on Thursday. That number is $8,134,208, an increase of $51,393 over prior year, a 0.64% increase.
Hey, Jim, do you know 2 years out what that number looks like? We got a roll off coming, right?
Yeah, give me a second here. All right, well, before not accounting for potential refunding,
right,
21, 22, 22, 23, it will drop by about $250,000. 23, 24 will then drop another $210,000 or so. Then the year after that, 24, 25, then it drops like $450,000. It really starts going down. It really starts going down after that.
Okay. So really, if we added some debt, if we refied and added some debt, then 21, 22, you know, might be for a year, but we would be able to start picking it up in the outer years. Okay.
Well, depending on how you structure it. If you structure it up front, refunding up front, it wouldn't affect the outer years at all, pretty much.
Well, that's true.
Negligible.
Yeah, but I'm talking about restructuring it and adding possibly some new debt to pay for some of these things if we have to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's not a terrible scenario.
Okay, and so I think we left off at capital improvements. So the capital improvements right now have been adjusted down to $2,996,668.
That's an increase of $558,037 over prior year. That's a 22.88% increase over prior year. And then if we want to move to the other metrics, mill rate impact and so forth. Right now, as it stands, the mill rate would be 23.98 mils. That would be a 0.62% increase in the mill. And that would translate into a 2.6% increase in the mill. 0.62 is the actual nominal increase. Taxes to be raised would increase by revenue to be raised by taxes would increase by 4.14% year over year. Is there any metric I'm missing that you would like to see?
No, the disconnect is the increase in the grand list, right?
Yeah, that makes a difference. A 1.45% increase in the grand list.
Yeah. So we got a budget.
What's undesignated fund balance running, and what is that in the next 2 months?
All right. Well, I'll have to give you that as of 6/30/20. I don't have an estimate as where we might land as of 6/30/21 yet. So our fund balance as of 6/30/20 is $15,717,000. Based on our 2021 budget, the 2-month reserve is $11,925,000. So our undesignated is $14,414,000. Assuming we break even, that would carry over into 21-22. I actually think that we'll be in the positive based on the revenue numbers that are coming in, particularly in taxes. I think we'll see a surplus there. I don't anticipate any significant deficits in expenditure accounts. So I think we're going to end up positive. So I think we'll be adding come 21-22 or 6/30/21. I think we'll be adding to our undesignated.
What's the amount over the 2 months?
That would be $2,450,000.
Jim, what do you suppose the rating agencies would hate more? Drawing down some of that undesignated, beyond the 2 months, or bumping up the debt by a like amount?
I think they like the fund balance. You got to bear in mind the rating agencies, their metrics they're looking at comparing to you nationally, not just in New England, where and nationally, because
it's still not so great nationally.
Yeah. Well, most states don't have don't have real estate taxes, which is a very steady revenue flow. So we can afford to have a lower reserve. Most other states, towns in other states have much higher numbers. They're like 30-35% in reserves. So relative to the rest of the country, we look poor, but relative
but they
to
like
other
the steady revenue stream. Yeah.
Pardon?
They like the steady revenue stream.
Yep.
So if you had to guess, how much debt capacity would you guess we might have before we started pissing them off?
Well, if you're making investments, it depends. If you're making investments in things like the WPCA and things like that, things that are going to bring value, I think they understand that. And I will say this, it's nice to be AAA, but the reason you get a good rating is not to brag about it. You get it to be able to use it.
It's that cheap. Yeah. Right.
And even if you're, and in fact, the rates where we are, you could probably drop down to, AA or AAB, and it's really not going to affect your rate that much.
Yeah, I know, because they're so low, but we don't want to do that. But it's
No, but even if you get dinged for something, I don't think that's a significant decision point with the rates the way they are in this market.
Yeah, but we could probably make a credible case that we preferred to leave the cash in there, go out and bond the debt because of X, Y, Z. We've got roll-offs coming and whatnot. I mean, they're not gonna crap on us for that because compared to every other municipality in Connecticut, we look great. So
Yeah, I
probably
think,
got some-
I think
so
they'd
we
rather
probably
see,
got room there. Yeah.
I think they'd rather see a healthy fund balance and then have you bond. I mean, that's what they do. They're in the bonding business, so.
I know.
Your interest.
What? What was that, Daniel?
No, continue on.
Okay, sorry.
All right, I think, given that discussion, we're at a point I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion from Glenn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Deb Norman. All right, great. All in favor, aye. Okay, we're adjourned for tonight. We'll see you back here on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.